man. Okay, we'll have been doing our show. It's almost 2 years.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
Yes, I believe it.
I believe it.
It happens that quick.
It
You'll
does.
be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because Duck Soup's been going on for 3 years. So, wow, that is wild. So I know. I see what you see. I kind of wanted to. I was getting a little like crazy thinking about like putting our shows together and doing a party. But I guess for being a DJ that doesn't work. That doesn't work that well.
I mean, I understand the philosophy, but
yeah.
Trying to do if you guys were both music,
yeah,
more of a musical show, it
yeah,
would make difference. But
yeah,
trying to mix politics,
yeah,
and then trying to have a hip hop show at the same time,
yeah,
is a little hard.
Yeah.
And I just know how the clashing will be because I know how Age wants to. He'll want to stick with kind of hip hop.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah, and I
then
think
you'll have people there. He's gonna invite people who are hip hop people.
Yeah.
It's just it's a clash.
Well, I think especially when see, for me, it would be more. It isn't really. It's not really a big deal to be doing my thing and then have a break and have somebody else come on. But with the music and with their show, your buildings, it exactly. Just builds. It's different.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then we start pumping it with the hip hop music.
Yeah.
Then you go into politics.
Yeah.
Or let's just say you get good. Everybody's into the politics. You can't just start playing hip hop music in the middle of a political debate.
Well, remember, I don't have debates, remember.
Well, you don't have debates, but if you did a big forum with a bunch of people, I hate to tell you this, but it'll possibly turn into a debate. Yeah.
Well, okay, so remember, we have been playing Tshila, another Ugandan rapper. Okay, so I'm now friends with her on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I saw, I follow her public page, and I saw that she was performing at Pittsburgh Gay Pride. So I posted on the page saying like, oh hey, great, you should come out here for Pride. And so she put down she'd love to. So I contacted the page and she wrote back, and then so now we're friends on Facebook. And I don't know. I tend to be pretty confident sometimes, and I'm pretty confident in some areas about getting people shows, but then I was like, okay, well, I could talk to, I know Dion is like up to here with stuff, but I told her that she should contact Oakland Pride for next year. So I was like, okay, let's think about this a little bit more, because I don't know, man. I don't really know how I would start to try and get somebody a hip-hop show in the Bay Area, but
she wants to come to the Bay Area?
Yeah.
But she wants her own show.
Well, yeah. She's a rapper.
When does she come to the Bay Area?
When I can hook up a show.
Like, you mean like a show that she's gonna do all the time, or like?
Oh no, like a performance show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Man, so I gotta talk to Ace then. We gotta get that going.
Yeah, well, that would be really cool.
Well, that's what we've been trying to do anyway. Well, this is your show. I don't want to get into that.
But she's but here's where we really get the crossover. She's a Ugandan rapper, right. And then that's real important in Uganda. They have Bobby Wine, who's a government minister, who will hopefully be running for president next year, and then Tshila is living in New York City because of repression in her country, and so that's a big part of her music. So that's a big crossover sort of thing. So yeah, we can that's why everybody knows I'm real interested in like political music and all that. But yeah, so that's definitely something to try and figure out. I was just, it's figuring out the money. Probably, because for a lot of stuff I do, that's not too hard. But putting on, it's a lot more expensive to try and put on a show. Like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I remember when you did the show for the movie you did.
Yeah.
Was that pretty hard?
Okay, we'll go. Well, no. Well, yeah. I mean, it was hard. I had to put it all together and figure it out. The way I did that as part of a film series that they have at the theater, so I got them to do that film as part of the series, so that meant they got the tickets and I didn't need to pay them for the show. But getting into my next project, I'm going to screen a documentary called Ralph Bunche, An American Odyssey, about Ralph Bunche in October, and they didn't want to do it as part of the film club, so that means I need to rent the theater. And the reason partially why I'm doing that is, because I was like, come on. I was like, how could they not want me to do another show there? That was like one of the biggest crowds they've had for like any of the film club things. But so while I was trying to get this worked out, I was exchanging communication with the widow of the filmmaker, and she worked on the film too, and so she wrote. So she is really excited about having the film at a real theater with the name on the marquee. So I'm just like, fuck it, you got to make an old lady happy, and so I just handed in my credit card. So now I need, because I've never needed to raise this much money before to rent the theater, and so it's hard for me to do that. I mean, I don't like, with most of the stuff I don't like asking people for stuff. Mm-hmm. So that is, but it's really important. And, so this is a film about Ralph Bunche. And so it's Ralph Bunche was a scholar and diplomat and civil rights strategist. And so he was born in 1903 in Detroit. He came out here with his grandmother and sister when he was 13, and that was because of a lot of grief, and there was a lot of like abandonment and loss in his family, which we'll get into in the program. And so he was part of the Great Migration, as it's called, of African Americans moving to California. So there's a whole lot of things that make Ralph Bunche very interesting to the community here, and so that is one of them. And I got the idea to. I've always been interested in doing something about Ralph Bunche, but I didn't think that I could get enough people together. But it turns out that I found out that a local pastor, Pastor Dante Quick, studied Ralph Bunche in school, and he was and he's wants to write a book about Ralph Bunche. Since he is like working as a pastor and has a family, I'm not sure when he's going to get to do that. But he's a scholar, a Ralph Bunche scholar, and I'm really excited about that. And he has a real following in the community, so he is going to speak. So I was like, okay, well, that's going to bring in enough people. I wouldn't have tried to do this just on my own without somebody to speak, because there's a lot of people, people like, they know the pastor, they trust the pastor to be speaking about something really that it's going to be interesting, and it's on their regular Bible study night, so he's going to have his Bible study come, which I think is awesome. I've talked about Ralph Bunche in my Bible study. He's just somebody you can really learn a lot about. So, for example, here was somebody that negotiated with the people that assassinated his colleague, and just all of us in our society have so much to learn about diplomacy. Like, how are you going to do that, and how are you going to? And he was being asked so he was traveling around the world being asked to solve the world's most difficult problems while he was trying to raise a family and having issues with his own family. And so he came up for me in my Bible study when we were talking about sacrifice. I don't really feel like I have had to sacrifice very much. I mean, I do nice things for people and I try and do good things for my community, but that's to give my life meaning. That's to give my life something to do. You know, I mean, when I go out and volunteer someplace, the alternative would be sitting around my house. You know, so I very rarely have ever needed to give up something in order to do something for someone else. So, and he really did. And one of the projects he did was studying, because before he became a diplomat, he was a political scientist and scholar. And during the 1930s, when he was a professor at Howard University, he was studying race and he was studying decolonization. And so when you look at somebody like Ralph Bunche, you see how necessary it is to have academic research and scholarship in order to change laws and change policy, because you have to have somebody to get out and get that information and find out about how people are living, and like, okay, how many houses don't have heat, and how many children aren't able to go to school, and how many people are like only eating one meal a day. And so one of the things he did was do a major trip through the Jim Crow South to study Jim Crow, but he did it as an assistant to a Swedish guy named Gunnar Myrdal, who was a sociologist, big ass sociologist, who was like assigned to do this project. I mean, and Gunnar Myrdal was no slouch. He was a real important dude and a good person to be doing it, but still, like, you have an African American guy assisting a Swedish guy to study African American life in the South, and here he's making the sacrifices to go down and like study Jim Crow while he's living and needing to live under Jim Crow. And so he'd be doing his research and then need to stay at somebody's house because he couldn't stay at a hotel. And, you know, he should have been the one running the survey, so far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, and that's an example. And he wanted to be a professor, but he was just... And he remained an adjunct professor at Howard for many years because he wanted to go back to it, but he was just so damn good at the UN that people wanted him to stay. And he was so good, his family life was very difficult because he was gone all the time, but he kept being called to solve these difficult situations. So he had his ambition, but also he was really committed to public service and to trying to do the best he could. So he was dealing with all of that his whole life, and so he had you know, I mean, back in those days, I mean, it's hard enough for people now if they have a parent, when a parent has a real high-powered job and needs to travel a lot. But in those days, I mean, travel was really slow. I mean, it was like taking boats across the ocean, and like later on there were planes. But when he he had a 2-year fellowship to study decolonization, and he didn't go without seeing his family for a whole 2 years, but there were some really long gaps because he would go to Africa and travel around Africa, and that was slow. So his wife was needing to work at that time. I mean, because especially when he was he was doing all this being paid as a professor. Professors don't make much money. And so she was working and raising their kids. And so it was very difficult on all of them. And so it's just one of the ironies to me that he was being asked to solve the world's most difficult problems, and he was known as being extremely calm and level-headed and good-humored at work, but at home he had a really bad temper and was just really did not keep his patience with his kids, could just be a real harsh disciplinarian, and just would try to be, and he sort of like, okay, and that's coming from other people and from he himself. He just was under so much strain. So he's a fascinating person. Most documentaries are 1 hour. This was 2 hours, and there are actually, the documentary was made about 20 years ago. There's actually 6 hours of edited footage. So, okay, you talk about 6 hours. If you have 6 hours of edited footage, that is, I don't even know how many hours of unedited footage there is. You see what I'm saying? So it was supposed to be a mini series, but they did not have the money to do that, and they had a hell of a time getting the money to even, so, I mean, it must have just been torture to try and edit it down to 2 hours. So I feel like it's very important to try to screen this film and, I mean, publicize the fuck out of it and try and get his name out there more. Pastor Quick, see, when I first met Pastor Quick, I was like, I want to read your dissertation. And that's one of those things, nobody wants to read dissertations for the most part, but I did. Because I was like, wow, here's like a real person that wrote about Ralph Bunche. He was actually not able to do his dissertation on Ralph Bunche because there weren't professors to supervise it. And so what that means is that, I mean, academia is slow. It takes a long time. So what that means is that there's not even, at that time, I mean, there weren't even enough people qualified to supervise a dissertation on Ralph Bunche. So that meant his dissertation was written about something else. So I'm just like, damn, are people still even studying this guy? So I have a list of numbers and people to try and call, but to get out here, I'm going to try and reach somebody in Berkeley who has edited collections about Ralph Bunche. But what I would need to do possibly is have even more events, because this is a 2-hour film and that we're showing on a weeknight, and we have Pastor Quick there, so, you know, I don't want to have any more people talk. There's not even enough, I don't even feel like there's not even enough time for everything that we could be getting into, because Pastor Quick studies Ralph Bunche's political philosophy and political theology. And so I listened to his sermons online, and so I've always been conscious of some of the difficulties of Ralph Bunche's life, but it's very much related to some of the things I've heard the pastor talk about with trying to maintain your family life. And so it's just extremely deep, and so I am going to see about having more events. And I tried to get a grant from the city, and I've never applied for grants before, and it would have been pretty fucking awesome. But
did they get back to you?
Well, not yet. I just submitted it.
Oh, you just did it?
Yeah.
I was curious if they get back to you or even if they tell you anything.
Well, yeah, I know.
Will they ignore it and just kind of... Do they usually get back, or do you know?
This is the first grant I've ever submitted. I mean, it's a... Unfortunately...
Have you known of other people who've done it?
That have submitted grant. Oh, yeah, I know tons of people that submit... I mean, my dad is brilliant at grants, but what he says, it's not... I mean, just the biggest thing is... You know, I mean, he's very good at getting grants because he applies for the right ones. That's one way that he would put it. But I thought the whole strength of my grant was that it was very specific. Like, okay, I want this amount of money to rent the theater, to do this, and I was listing a whole bunch of reasons that, okay, this is going to be very interesting to people in the Vallejo community. Part of the problem is I've been doing events for a really long time, but I don't keep very good records.
Well, when you do it?
Oh, God, no. So, and I'm really bad about doing stuff like sign-in sheets and all that, so I was just completely needing to guess at numbers for my events, but I'd spoken to the people that did the grant, and I went to a training session, and I emailed it for somebody to look at. She emailed it back with suggestions, and so I did all that. But then I got an email saying that it was supposed to be more general. And I was like, what? I was like, you know, the whole strength of what I'm doing is that it's very specific. So, I don't know. So... But it's good. I mean, it's really good to get the practice. And if I were to get a grant on my very first try, I don't know. That's practically unheard of. So.
Also, no one ever gets on the first try. They have to.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's.
Try it a few times.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, I mean, that's extremely rare because it's also really hard because it's. Well, one of the things that was unusual about this grant is that you can apply as an individual. And for a lot of grants, you can't do that. You need to be an organization, and so, yeah. I mean, it's very hard to get grants in the first place, and then you know it's like the whole thing of trying to get your first anything. You know, like okay, I'm trying to get a grant. People being like, oh well, you haven't gotten grants before, you know, but you know, you just need to keep trying, and I'm gonna you know, I'm going to do a GoFundMe, and I've just been crunching the switching it around. I mean, I was nuts. So at one point, I was going to do 2 screenings and have one screening be free and have the other one not be screening. I was like, okay, that's nuts. Like, do one, because I would have had to pay.
Have you ever thought about doing that to the guy that came here for your last show?
Yeah, but I don't want to for this.
You don't want to for this?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay.
If I was going to do I want to do it at the Empress Theater.
Gotcha.
If I wasn't...
That is a nice place. Yeah.
Exactly.
It has an old school type movie feel to it.
Exactly. And Louise Graves is really she really wants to see it up on the marquee. And yeah, I wouldn't... I've shown films over at Vallejo Naval Historical Museum before, and they have a really nice little theater with a screen, and so I could have if I was gonna show another. I mean, I could show it there. Manny's place isn't really set up.
How much do they charge you at the Naval Theater?
He doesn't charge me.
Oh, so they let you just do it?
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy that runs it is just wonderful. How
big is it?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 150 people.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
So you think it's a little bit smaller than Empress then?
It's a lot smaller than Empress.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. One of the problems with the Empress is that when I did my showing before is they didn't really have records of how many people came to that showing. So. Oh yeah, because I was trying to ask you about it, but yeah, the Naval Historical Museum has been wonderful to me because they know they know that like they kind of look at the situation, you know, and they know that like I put in all my time to, you know, I don't make anything off doing these events, right. And so, yeah, the last event I did there was free. I didn't charge anybody to come in. The one before we did charge people. Yeah, I did, like at the first event I did there, I charged people, and then when I was like, okay, how much do I owe you? And he's like, oh, it's okay. I mean, they're really, really nice. Because they know, I mean, there's other events that come in where people do have more money, and he knows I'm just on my own. And so, and the people, he was going to give me a really good deal for the free showing of the Ralph Bunche film. And so I'm going to see if he's going to give me he might give me a break in the price for the Empress, but I don't, I mean, the Empress is a non-profit also. Wow. I mean, so I don't like to, my first thought with my events is to figure out how to pay for them, not to get somebody to, like, they're not really making much, but, I'll see. But he was, since, I mean, now I'm just like crunching the numbers for people to come in, and we'll figure it out. I mean, I kind of, for what I want to do for my career, for being a historian, I need to just do these things. Madeline, oh my God. Okay, this is big. My niece, Madeline Bergman, who graduated from law school. I haven't seen you in a long time. I went up to see my beautiful niece graduate from law school, which is awesome.
Was she happy? Was she glad to get out of there?
Oh, she was.
Does she know where she's going, or she's going to take a little break?
No, she's going to go to Israel, and she's going to work for an organization there, assisting women. Oh, so she's going to live down there. She's not going to live there, but she's going to be there for a couple months, I guess, for 5 months. And she needs to take the bar exam. So she kind of has that one thing to leap through, and then, I don't know. We didn't get to. It was the first time I'd seen her in a very long time, and so I'm not sure what kind of law she wants to practice. But I mean, there's so many different things you can do as a lawyer. So we will be talking more about Ralph Bunche. Here's something kind of interesting having to do with legal stuff and all of that. So, in Seattle, Washington, they've just passed a regulation that prevents landlords from checking criminal backgrounds of tenants.
Yeah, I'm glad they do that. I think that's a bad law. I don't like that law.
What is the law?
I think didn't they try to pass that here too?
They passed a law to ban landlords from checking criminal histories.
Yeah, but they were trying to get a law going where they can look at your criminal background.
Well, they do. They already do.
Oh, so they already do that.
Yeah, this is a law to ban them from doing it.
Yeah, they need to stop anyway. I didn't know that they ever got it going yet. I didn't know. Well, it doesn't really bother me as much, but...
Do you think they should be able to check?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be able to check. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They need to get... I honestly didn't even know they started that. The last time I saw that, a couple of years ago, they were trying to get something like that passed, but I guess they passed. I didn't know they can do that.
Well, I'd always kind of... I mean, it seems to me... I just sort of assumed, because if you're applying for a place to live and you give them your information, they do a background check, so I just always sort of assumed that was part of it.
Well,
of a background check.
I don't know if they, you know what I'm saying? I guess you give them your information and they can check. But
will they check your finance?
I don't think they should be able to check financially I can understand that.
Yeah.
For criminal stuff, I don't think they should check that. They should be able to check that. That should have nothing to do with you having a place to stay.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
irrelevant on the situation. And, you could have been a bad person a long time ago, and you could be cool now.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do, never have a place to live? Because that's something you did a long time. That's stupid.
Yeah, it's tricky. What the landlords are saying was, because, again, it sort of comes back to, okay, a lot of the time, look at all the police killings. A lot of people have criminal records because of discriminatory practices. But what the landlords are saying is that that's not their fault. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting because again, I mean, you know, you gotta be able to start somewhere.
That's one of the big things in prison that is a problem, which I don't understand.
What?
Is the whole felony situation. I get it. Okay, you get a felony, but if you're gonna release this person, but then you know they have to tell everybody they have a felony.
Yeah.
How are they supposed to get anything, a job or anything?
Well, yeah.
I personally think they should be able to hide it.
Yeah.
I think the only time it should come up is if something criminal happens.
Yeah.
Not for job, you know, for getting a house or not because they want a job. But like, if something happens, then I can say, okay, that's different. But they should let that part go.
What about like sex offender registries?
Maybe sex offenders may be different. Those might be a little bit different. But if you're not a sex offender,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you have 3 or 4 felonies, because maybe let's just say you were selling drugs.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. That's just...
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like if somebody serves their time, you know, you want them to be able to...
And that's another thing I have, another problem. If they serve their time, it's technically they served the time they were supposed to serve for what they did.
Yeah.
So why should they suffer almost their whole life because of one time?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, because and I just feel like to me, one of the biggest, the biggest reason not to discriminate against ex-convicts is because there's just so many people out there that haven't been caught. You need to just be, I mean, you know, and especially to me, like the whole the sex offender thing, that's just false security. You need to treat everybody like, you know, there's so many people that don't get caught. So it's like, okay, you might be being like super like, oh my God, I don't want this person to live near me because they're whatever. But you need to be careful about everybody. A lot of people don't get caught.
But that part's the hard part. When you actually know somebody's a sex offender. I hate to say it, and I see your point on that. You never know with anybody.
You don't.
But when you don't know, it's better than knowing. I hate to say it like that, but if I don't know, I can't judge you because I don't know, rather as if I know you were one. It's a different feeling. Like I know you were one.
Well, I'm just talking about taking precautions. You need to take you need to have the same precautions with everybody at all times.
So what do you think they should do about people who have sex offenses, like when they let them loose? What do you think is a good idea to do something to them in situations? Because now they got that on their moniker.
Yeah.
What are they supposed to do? Like, how could they work that for them?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I certainly think that there should be laws about, you know, they should have like laws or regulations. Well, if they're like child molesters, there should be laws for them not to be around children.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it depends on the level of the crime too. I mean,
what is your sexual level?
Oh, well, the age. That's a big thing. I mean, because you know, if somebody is under 18 and has committed sex crimes, I mean, you know, just about everybody that commits sex crimes has been offended against. But you know, if somebody does get caught when they're under 18 and has treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they should be able to have an opportunity.
I can understand that part's different. I mean, if they're kids, yeah, that's a hard one right there.
I mean, there should be an opportunity for treatment.
Yeah. But what about people who are older?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, okay, if regardless, I mean, people need to be able. I think everybody should be able to have a roof over their heads and enough to eat. And if somebody is, you know, I mean, if somebody, especially, okay, if somebody has a criminal background and, already has like that connections and experience, if they don't have a place, you know, they're going to need to go out and make money. And so I don't know.
That's a hard one.
It is
That's
a hard
one right there, because a lot of people don't like sexual offenders, and when they get out there, they're stuck.
Well, yeah.
That's a hard situation.
It's a really hard situation, and it's you know, I mean, you sort of feel like if it's, and then again, like, okay, you just be on guard against everybody, because there's a whole lot of people that never get caught. There's a lot of people that don't get caught, and then there's a lot of people that even if they get caught, they don't get prosecuted.
Right.
So, or they don't, or if they don't have somebody to testify against them, or,
right.
You know, but then, like, say, unfortunately, if, like, this is people can also, like, say in universities, if professors are accused of things, I mean, basically people's careers can be ruined just by being accused of things.
Right.
And so that's not fair. You know, but okay, this relates to something that I was following this week. And this has to do with history. It was kind of interesting. Okay, so it's known that it's like well known that Martin Luther King was not a faithful husband, and that's known. But there was an article printed in a British paper which claims that Martin Luther King was in a room where that he witnessed a rape, and that was egging the other guy on.
Oh, I saw that.
You saw that.
You know what? I think that's fake.
Well, you don't know that, but
nobody knows that. That's
okay.
See,
but what I'm gonna
that's a hard one right there.
Okay, what I'm gonna go into the historical aspects of it, because I was following this by you know, but some articles by historians about okay, how do you do this? Because the problem is the guy that printed this article, that he's not just some idiot. He is and less so now, was a real respected historian who wrote a very comprehensive biography of Martin Luther King.
Right. And
so because of who he was, it needed to be taken seriously. And so I read some articles, and because there's the whole issue with tapes, with things being declassified. Okay, so what he was going by, because J. Edgar Hoover was bugging Martin Luther King's hotel rooms and all of that, but he didn't do this. This wasn't based on a tape. It was based on handwritten notes, a handwritten note from an agent to J. Edgar Hoover, and that was it. The tapes themselves they can't be released until 2027. So here's this real important historian that wrote this article based on, because it's gonna be based on something. The guy's not gonna come, and so the question was,
so he's going off of an agent for J. Edgar Hoover.
Well, yeah.
It was written.
Yeah, and that is, well, yeah.
Even though around the time, most of these agents was trying to get rid of most of these leaders anyway. Exactly. That's I don't know, that's kind of.
And that is kind of what some of the that's kind of what some of the real expert historians were saying. Just what you said, and that one of the problems now that it's such a big deal, because this was something that was released in there was a big batch of JFK papers that were released a year ago, and so this, like, thousands of pages, and so this is just buried there. But it was interesting because some of the articles I've read have been about the ethics and the skills for historians of looking at all this information, because, you know, people can tend to think like, oh, well, it's the tapes. People can get so focused on these government on declassified documents being released that they don't think as critically as they should about, okay, well, people falsify government documents.
My question is, if this guy was such a well-known, why would he fall into that?
Well, that is what people are asking. Yes.
That's odd. That's odd for a guy that you said is so well-renowned to just be like, well, it has to be true. It was one of the agents for J. Edgar Hoover. That's kind of like...
It's really odd. And
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, well, but that's why that's why I was reading articles about it, and that's why I was reading, I discovered a new, I'm
gonna look at, when you leave, I'm gonna mess with my phone just to...
I'll send you I'll send you the
somebody posted, I was like, really? Come on.
I'll send you the articles I read, because one of them, a friend of mine who's a political scientist, posted an article by a friend, I think a guy who may have been a student, who's also a well-regarded historian, and so I friended this guy Trevor on Facebook. And he gave a really good explanation of it, because he's also written, I forget what his actual book is, but he's also written work with those kind of declassified sources, and so that was pretty cool. And then I found another really interesting article and this was by a black feminist historian, who said, well, there's no doubt. She's sort of like, anybody could have told you that he was pretty sexist and didn't have much sexist, but this is and they're even saying, okay, these tapes will be released in 2027, and we'll listen to them.
So why are they waiting so long to release them?
It's regulations.
Okay.
Like the wishes of, I think it's the wishes of the family, perhaps. I'm not sure. Or that when just having to do with when the documents are declassified, basically. So, you want to take another quick break?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, we will be back.